Morning.
Okay.
I just consented to being recorded. Okay, good morning. Thank you everyone who's in attendance today. My name is Nadisi Najib. I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works, and Cerise Waiters is our clerk this morning. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available through a link in the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there's no sign-in sheet. So if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice, which is should be urban forestry at sfdpw.org. If you'd like to be on the contact list, please type and send your email address in the chat or send an email to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. This hearing is being held today to consider 3 items regarding tree removals under the Public Works jurisdiction. We intend to go through the items in the order posted on the website and being shared on screen. My job as a hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making findings from this hearing. Sorry. I will not be making findings from this hearing, but I'll make my recommendations to the director, and the director will make the final determinations. Once the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you if you've provided your contact information. The hearings will proceed as follows for the next 3 cases. I'll ask the Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner or appellant or applicant to speak to any of those matters. And then any member of the public or witnesses who wants to speak. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes, and the clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you're a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. And also, you will also have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you're a member of the public or witness who wants to speak, wait on me to call for public comments and then use the Zoom's raise your hand feature if you're on a computer so that we can recognize you. And then if your phone is, or if you're on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. And if you would like to use visual presentations in your visual materials in your presentation, let me know before you speak, and then you'll have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you can't finish your comments within the allotted time, you can submit them written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. And if I feel a question is warranted, I'll ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. Okay. So we will now begin the hearing for order number 205335 for 99 Missouri Street to consider removal of 8 street trees with replacement.
Good morning. My name is Marcus Dotson. I am the Urban Forestry Inspector for Buff. So I would like to share my screen. All right, here we go. Can people see my screen?
No, not yet.
No, it's not.
Not yet.
How about now?
Yes, it's beginning now. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's 99 Missouri Street, removal of 8 street trees with replacement. The applicant has applied, and the staff has denied the removal of 8 trees. The applicant has appealed. So that's the reason for these trees coming to hearing today. This is kind of an overview. This is actually one of the site plans that was sent to me from the applicant. The orange boxes are the trees that are proposed for removal in connection with their construction project at 99 Missouri Street. When we move through the slides, you'll see that not all of the trees on this site plan are represented. The proposed trees are the ones that are not in orange, I believe, but we'll go through and address them one by one. So this is tree 1. The physical location, if you're, using Google Maps, will be at 1250 17th Street. But this is in association with the 99 Missouri Street project. It's jacaranda. It has some damages that you can see kind of on one of the main stems, or one of the branches emanating from the main stem. Just a general species comment about this particular species, that they are all 8 trees are jacaranda mimosifolia trees. They are summer deciduous, so they're the first trees kind of to lose their leaves in late summer. So this is, they're not at their height of beauty and vibrance at the moment, but that's the normal cycle for this particular tree. There's just a couple other photos here of the trunk and the basin that the tree's planted in. And again, those kind of that damaged limb there on the right side. Tree 2, again, it's another jacaranda, but this is the second tree that is being proposed for removal by the project. As we move down, this is both trees on 17th Street, adjacent to Missouri, but these are both the trees kind of in their entirety shown here in this picture. And a note about this particular species behavior as it relates to how deciduous it is at particular times of the year. So tree 1 on 99 Missouri Street. Again, another jacaranda. I have noted the lean of this tree again, but this is kind of, aside from the slight lean, this is kind of typical for what the tree would look like at this time of year. Tree 2, another jacaranda, a bit smaller, but fair condition. Tree 3, I can say the same for this. Some, maybe a little bit of dieback in some select areas of the canopy, but the tree is in otherwise fair condition. Tree 4, a smaller jacaranda, but the planting dates of these may have varied, which would result in the smaller size of each of these trees. Not to mention that each specific location in a place like San Francisco does provide its unique growing conditions for each tree. So, one tree doing well, even, 50, 60 feet down the block may not translate to another tree that's in a different location, even though it's on the same street. Tree 5, again, this one also has a lean and a little bit of some damaged limbs just past the main branch union, but it looks like it was it is recovering with some reaction wood, so that's a good sign. Again, fair condition. And lastly, this jacaranda at the end here of the project, a little sparse in the canopy, again, due to the summer deciduous nature of this tree, and a slight lean. And this is an overview of all of the trees. This picture was taken off Google. This was earlier in the year when the trees were more foliated. You can see how much of a difference that makes. But this is how the tree looks when, earlier in the year when it hasn't begun to drop its leaves. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add, just to clarify, the Bureau again did deny the removal of all 8 trees. We did not get sufficient evidence or reasons why the trees needed to be removed, as it seems all the construction for this particular project will be taking place inside the footprint of the building. The footprint of the building is not changing. We didn't see a reason that would necessitate the removal of these trees. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. Okay, now we'll allow the property owner or applicant to speak. And then when any member of the public witness wants to speak, they can speak after that. Go ahead. Is there no one here?
I don't see any hands from the property owner at this time.
Okay,
No
so,
hands at this time.
It may have been a no-show from the applicant.
okay. So if they pop on later, will we allow them to speak or do I need to close it?
That's at your discretion. Yeah, it's up to you. We can know, I'm not sure of their name, but Marcus, if you do see them, let me know so we can let the officer know that they're here.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Okay,
Okay.
so for now, I won't close out order 25335 until the end of the hearing today, in case they're just late and they come on or they're having technical difficulties, if that's okay with everyone. Okay,
Okay.
all right, so we're gonna put that on pause. Next up, I'd like to hear order number 205336 for the address at 2189 Bayshore Boulevard to consider the removal of one tree with replacement on a different property, tree located on Blanken Avenue frontage.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I think I'm sharing my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, the removal of one street tree adjacent to 2189 Bayshore. The actual address of the tree, which is logged in our database, is 11 Blanken Avenue. The applicant has applied for the removal. The Bureau has denied the removal. This is the tree here. This photo was taken in 2011. Our tree records, I do want to note, I didn't include this particular verbiage in my slideshow, but the tree, we have records of this tree being planted in 2009, which is goes along with what you'd expect for the size of this tree. So if this tree here is, the photo was taken in 2011, that looks to be about a 2-year-old tree in the ground, judging by the caliper size, meaning the size of the trunk and its height and just its normal growing rate.
Okay.
This tree sequence 4 in our database, again, 11 Blanken Avenue. This is just a little bit of a timeline here. Tree removal application was submitted in 7/9 of 21. The tree removal was denied by the staff, the urban forestry staff with Buff. The applicant was to provide more information as to why the tree removal was necessary. And short of that, the Bureau of Urban Forestry has denied the removal of this tree. They stipulated the proximity to a vault during our preliminary conversations. But it's typical in these situations, although this planting site would not be selected in the future for a planting next to a utility like this, utility vault, because it was planted so far in the past, in 2009, it's more or less grandfathered in, and a move to remove this tree wouldn't be sustained unless there were some explicit reasons why the tree needed to be removed. Either it's, actively failing and it's a large tree, or it is actively obstructing some process of work or some safety guideline or something like that. The proximity to the vault, as I said, is a problem. If we're looking to plant a new tree in this area, we wouldn't move to do that. But since the tree was planted in 2009, removing this tree, we just need a really concrete reason why this tree needs to be removed and what problems it's causing.
Okay.
I was out on site on, looks like, if I remember, oh, here we go, the date, 8/24. And I recorded that the tree had been removed leading up to this hearing. It is considered an illegal removal to remove a tree without a permit issued by the Bureau of Urban Forestry. The standard in lieu fee is what we had landed on in terms of fining the applicant for the removal of this tree without a permit. Buff will be requiring the tree be replaced adjacent to the location. As I said, we're not going to replant the location next to the vault that they had pointed out, but there are possibly several locations across the street that could be a good viable spot for a tree, pending utility checks and things like that. The size of the tree being required to replace the tree that was illegally removed, along with the fees paid, is a 24-inch box. And they can use, we can talk about species later as we get closer to that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just to verify, there's a fine and they're required to replace the tree at the new location, correct?
Yes. So typically even when we approve trees for removal, replacement is typically a requisite of
Okay.
that removal permit. And then when I went on site to post the tree to announce this hearing that we're at today, that I noticed the tree was gone. So I assessed an illegal removal fee on top of the normal proceedings.
Okay, and how much is that fine?
The fine currently for a standard in lieu fee is $22.30, I believe, $2,230 per tree.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is the applicant here? Is there anyone or witness?
We have a hand raised by Cable Stokes.
Okay, thank you.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Cable Stokes. I am Director of Construction for Mosher. I do have some material to share that I'd like, if that's okay.
Okay, just one moment. I'll promote you to panelist, and then after you come on screen, you will unmute yourself and begin talking and share your screen, and you'll have three minutes, okay?
Okay,
Just-
bear with me a moment. I'm unfamiliar with Zoom and may take me a moment to figure out how to share.
No problem. Okay, just a moment. I'll transfer you.
Bear with me.
Okay, there you are.
Share.
Either at the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, there should be a green button that says share screen.
I see it now. Thank you.
Mhm.
This is just a presentation. If it's all right, I'd like to walk through the presentation.
Yeah.
Just as a preface to it, we are in agreement with Mr. Dotson and his points. We ask for some grace in the consideration and help in navigating conflicting safety requirements between PG&E and the city. So I'm just going to kind of walk through this, but we ask for your help in navigating two mutual sort of jurisdictions with differing safety procedures, if you will.
Okay, and Mr. Stokes, I did receive this and I passed it along to the hearing officer as well, so you know that, okay?
Thank you so much. Do
Okay,
appreciate it.
so you'll have 3 minutes.
The intent is just to show the location within the city. Obviously, we're located in the Vistakon area to the southeast of the city here. This is the intersection of Bayshore and Blanken. Mr. Dodson indicated the vault here and the tree. We're just showing the vault with the underground power line to the existing pole here. That power line actually passes in a position beneath 3 trees that were placed after that line. So literally, the trees are planted on top of the power line. I'll explain it further, but PG&E does not allow trees to be planted on top of their power lines because the roots can disrupt that and it becomes a safety issue. But I'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment. Just a basic timeline. I think we are basically in agreement. I incorrectly assumed the tree was planted in 2015. I think Mr. Dodson identified it was planted in 2009. The vault itself was from a permit from 2008 based on the excavation of a site at 2180. That is this structure here. We're actually working on this structure here at 2201 Bayshore. It is a public works project with private money and relates to a larger project that has to do with affordable housing. So this is part of a larger project. That vault will provide a line crossing the street and power this facility to allow for some more affordable housing. So it's part of a larger project. Point being that based on the timeline, the vault was there as of 2008. The tree, as we now know, is actually there in 2009. And the tree was actually planted directly over a power line. PG&E does not allow that. I'm not sure how that transpired, but that's where we're at today. Indication of the submission for the tree replacement permit, the right-of-way permit, the trench permit, all of these permits, except for the tree replacement permit, were approved. Within the right-of-way permit and the trench permit, there's indication of the necessity to remove the tree temporarily to do the work and then replace the tree. The request is that the tree be assisted by the city to put in a new location due to the safety issue. So we ask for some consideration in the assessment of a fine, because we do have 2 permits that said we did need to remove that to do the work, because literally the tree is on top of the conduit for the power. This is just an overview of the tree and tree map that I'm sure the city is aware of, and some assessment of growth, which Mr. Dodson alluded to. Kind of an overall narrative and perspective.
30 seconds.
The basics of the issue is that the tree is within 25 feet of a traffic signal. It's within 25 feet of the street corner, and it's a plant on top of an electrical line. If we look here, you can see that it's within distance to the signal, planted next to the vault. And furthermore, if you look up the street, you can see here the tree, upon approach to the intersection, actually blocks the traffic signal. These present a safety hazard. I could go further in talking about how there are issues relating to the relocation of the tree. We're happy to relocate the tree. This is also the PG&E plan, which requires the relocation of the tree. We ask the city's help in navigating PG&E's safety requirements and the safety requirements of the city, being that the tree literally blocks the signal, which is one of the tree's criteria for not putting a tree in.
Thank you. That's 3 minutes, Ms. Najib.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stokes. When was the tree removed? As it looks like we had the hearing on schedule, and between the time that the photo was taken in July and then again in August.
It was within a week ago. PG&E's schedule is very tight. In order to get inspections, we literally have to do certain amounts of work, and it's very complicated to get PG&E's time. We are of the assumption that the permits that we received, the 2 other permits that say remove and relocate, that were approved, those permits were approved, that it was of the understanding, and certain functions of the city would talk to other functions of the city, identifying that in order to do that work, this was permissible. We have 2 permits allowing it, and then 1 that's in question. All of them are public works permits. It puts us in a quagmire between safety from PG&E and the requirements from the city. We ask for help and consideration in the application of that fine. We're ready to replace the tree wherever it needs to be. And if it needs to go back in the same location, we would ask the city work with us in speaking to PG&E, because PG&E won't let us do that.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Stokes. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any members of the public or witnesses that wish to speak on this matter? Okay. Thank you, Public Works, for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Stokes, for yours.
Thank you.
Ms. Najib, I'm sorry, we do have 2 hands from the public.
Okay.
Joshua Clip, go ahead, Mr. Clip, you should be able to speak.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So just a few comments that, maybe now is not the best time to be taking tree advice from PG&E, which is the entity currently responsible for practices that have now burnt over 800,000 acres of trees in the Dixie wildfire. Also, that if this tree had been planted illegally, Buff should have been able to make that evaluation. And Mr. Dodson didn't mention any of that in his presentation. So to the extent that there was a lot in the applicant's presentation about all of these infrastructural conflicts, those are things that Buff should have been able to suss out in its position there within Public Works. Also, it doesn't, in terms of mitigating any kind of fine that's been assessed, there is no distinction in the law regarding whether this is public housing or commercial or luxury housing. The laws are the same. And conflicting safety rules does not give permission to anyone here to break the law that has just the least financial penalty or that allows the project to move forward expeditedly or on time. But unfortunately, the law with the least penalty is the one that is currently protecting some of the few trees remaining in San Francisco. But I would respectfully submit that there should be no diminishment in the currently assessed penalties. If anything, there should be augmentation of those penalties. This is effectively not even a slap on the wrist when it comes to the costs of these types of projects. The laws may be complicated, but that's why being a developer in the city requires you to be particularly sophisticated. So we should not be blaming the city for things that we don't understand. That's on us. In any event, that damage to our established environment, which we need so badly right now, should not be rewarded with these inconsequential fines. It really needs to be more highly penalized.
Thank you, Mr. Clip.
Okay, we have John Nolte. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte. You should be able to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Yes, looking at this multiple sites of the property, the construction is across the street, the vault is across on the other side of the street. And my issue is that he's using current buff regulations against the removal of a tree, which does not make any sense because Buff has already made a statement that the tree should not have been removed. Therefore, the levy of the fine should be assessed as appropriately, and also that the construction that's being done find a location for, since the tree has been removed, find a location for a 24-inch box site, and also maybe if the urban forester could discuss what species to replace the tree that was removed would go into that location. And then lastly, my concern is that this should not be rewarded by a contractor for not fulfilling all of the permits that needed to be done to complete the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte, for your comments.
I see no other hands at this time.
I'm sorry, you said you see no other hands?
No other hands.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay.
I
Go
did
ahead.
want to briefly address some of the comments made, if I could.
Thank you, of course.
I guess firstly, as I said, that covered in my slideshow, the tree was planted in 2009. I don't have the information at my fingertips this morning as to why the tree was planted there, if in fact the vault was at that location. When a new building goes up, this was probably construction related, so there would have been a review by the urban forestry staff at the time in 2009. But again, the two things we're coming up against is the removal of the tree requires a replacement, whether it's approved or not, and the fact that the tree was removed without a permit, possibly having further conversations and being delivered this information, which I hadn't received until the hearing today, about the tree's location and its possible obstruction for PG&E conducting its business, servicing the utility vault, things like that. It's conceivable that the tree may have been approved after going through the hearing process, but we're in a position now where the fine is assessed because there was no permit for the tree's removal. Although they were permitted for this project by other agencies in the city, BUF, the Bureau of Urban Forestry, is the agency which oversees the trees and the agency from which they need to have a removal permit issued to them. In light of that, I assessed the standard in lieu fee of the $2,230, which it is currently at today. As far as the species, if someone would like to know the species that this the replacement tree is going to be, I can list a couple of them now, but it's you know, deciding on species is our position at the Bureau of Urban Forestry, is to plant the right tree in the right place, meaning the tree's stature and the tree's overall benefits to the environment in those localized areas, and the areas that it's going to do the best, meaning it's going to have the most chance at surviving towards its normal life, expected life. So I would assume that this place would be a good place for another Tristania, which is the species of the tree that was illegally removed. Brisbane box also comes to mind. It just depends on, again, the localized site conditions. If there's overhead power, if, you know, how wide the sidewalk is, we compare that to canopy size, you know, things like that. So those are the types of things we look at when we recommend certain species over others for replacement trees, like in the situation we have at 2189 Bayshore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your presentation and comments offered today for today's hearing. If there's no one else or no additional comments, I'm going to go ahead and close out order number 205336. Next up is order number 205337 for location at 2724 Pacific Avenue to consider removal of one street tree with replacement. Public Works, are you ready?
Here we go. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right. Yes, 2724 Pacific Ave. The applicant has applied for the removal of one tree with replacement, and the staff has denied this tree for removal. This is just a brief synopsis of the arborist report of the particular tree that we'll take a look at in just a minute. Here in red at the bottom, this arborist report has deemed this tree in very poor condition, unhealthy, and poses a moderate risk. This is a little timeline here. So the subject tree has this blue arrow pointing to it here. It's a syzygium, kind of coming up here. It has two competing leads, it looks like here. But the property owner applied for the tree to be removed in June of this year. Buff denied for the following reasons. Buff's assessment of the tree was that it was in fair condition. The tree does have some dieback with a little signs of dieback in the canopy on the right-hand side. We'll get a closer picture of that as I move through this. The Buff's decision to deny the tree was also expanded upon by saying that we will continue to monitor this tree over the course of the next year to see how it fares through the winter. If it begins to or continues to decrease or decline, then we can have this permit open and be ready to reassess the tree at that time. If the tree is if the tree is showing signs of significant decline. This is kind of a photo of the base of the tree near the curb, and the sidewalk is to the left here. There's a retaining wall to the right. Here's another close-up of the trunk. These are the competing leads here. It is a narrow angle of attachment. It doesn't look like there's any signs of active cracking or separating between these two limbs at this point. This is kind of a photo of the canopy. The right competing limb has more of the dieback than the left side does here. It's kind of sitting under a deodar cedar. Here it is again, situated close to the retaining wall. And you can see some of the dieback a little more clearly on this side here. Again, the Bureau of Urban Forestry did not find an overwhelming reason why this tree should be removed. The health of the tree, again, was assessed by the urban forestry staff as fair. Risk of failure is low, determined by the staff member who was on site. And there's no significant property damage that was found on site, nor submitted to us by the applicant. And so Buff decided to deny the removal application for this particular tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Public Works, Mr. Dodson, for your presentation. Is the applicant on this call? Does anyone have their hand raised, Cerise?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public? that
Yes,
wishes- Public comment? Okay, thank you.
yes. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Good morning. I feel that this tree should stay as stated by the Bureau of Urban Forestry's assessment of the tree. And secondly, since we weren't able to speak on item number 2, public comment was not brought up. And then also number 3, you didn't close the order for 99 Missouri Street. I'd like to make my comment for that right now. And that is that I prefer that the 8 trees around the site of 99 Missouri Street be maintained. And as was stated during the presentation, there were no reasons of construction outside the footprint of the property. Therefore, all 8 trees should remain. There was no reason for the removal by the current construction to remove those 8 trees. Thank you very much and have a good morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nolte. I appreciate your comments.
And then we have Mr. Clip. Go ahead, Mr. Clip. You should be able to speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Just on that last tree, I would respectfully request that the Bureau's decision be
Okay.
upheld, basically. And it does not look like there's any compelling reason to get rid of a tree right now. If we can save a tree right now, that's what we need to be doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cliff, for your comments. Are there any further public comments?
No, there are no other
On-
hands.
Okay, so this was concerning order number 205-337 at the location of 2724 Pacific Avenue. We're gonna go ahead and close this order number out. And then did anyone come on to address the first order number at 99 Missouri Street, order number 205-335? We said we would allow that to remain open in case someone popped on or popped into the meeting. Right?
I haven't had any communication with them,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well,
And then Ms. Najib, if we
Yes.
could have item number 1 for the public comment at this time. That was,
okay. Oh, public,
it-
okay,
yes, it
right.
can be done at the beginning or at the ending of the hearing.
Okay, thank you. You know, I thought that was, when I saw that on the agenda, I thought that was not a typo, but
Oh, okay.
I just-
Yeah,
yeah, okay, so
yeah,
my apologies. I saw that in the comments and I was like, what does he mean? What is he talking about? Okay, so thank you.
yeah, that's new, so.
Order number 1, which is order number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Members of the public may address a hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. So
Yes.
Are there any public comments or anyone wish to speak to that at this time?
We do have a hand by Mr. Clip.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Mr. Clip.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if we ever officially called for public comment on 99 Missouri, but I just want to say that, you know, I agree with the Bureau's evaluation here, where if all of the construction is inside the footprint of the building and there's been no compelling reason given for the removal of what looked like some sustainable trees, there's absolutely no reason to approve the removal, especially if they don't even bother to show up at a hearing. This is not, you know, if they haven't given that information to the Bureau and they haven't given it to the public, then there should be no more bites at this apple, and they should be required to preserve those trees during construction. And then I would just, the general comment I would make is to thank the Bureau for, you know, what seems to me to be an increase in denials of applications. Obviously, I don't have full insight into that because I know there could be a lot of denials that maybe aren't appealed and don't show up at this hearing. But I was surprised in a good way to see a hearing dedicated entirely to trees that have been denied for removal. This watching what's happening in our state and in our world right now is profoundly painful for a lot of us, and especially people who care about trees and people who live in California and care about trees. So anything that we can do, even in some small measure, to make right what is happening in the world and to make our city more resilient and sustainable so that our children and our children's children have a possible breathable future. Everything matters. What we're doing right now, everything matters, no matter how small it may seem to us at the time. So I just wanted to thank the Bureau for that and make that comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
We have Mr. Nolte.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Yes, good morning. I just want to make one comment. I wanted to congratulate Sheriff Schwartz for becoming the interim director for the Department of Public Works, and showing that, and in the press release showing her background with various departments within DPW already on her resume. So I think that it's good for somebody that has worked with the Bureau of Forestry for a number of years to be in the interim directorship of DPW is a good thing. And so I think that's great that she's there, and I commend her for her appointment to that position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Okay. Well, if there are no more comments this morning from the public, no more public comments, I will go ahead and close out our hearing today. I want to thank everyone for your participation, especially our public works staff. Thank you, Cerise. Thank you, Mr. Dotson. And for everyone else that's remaining on the call, I will be making my recommendations to Director Carla Short by the end of the week, and then you'll be notified by Buff, is that correct, of the outcome of today's hearing. So once again, I appreciate your participation and your passion and your time for being a part of this process. So thank you, everyone. That's it.
Okay, just one moment and I will
Thank you.
stop the recording. Just a moment.